Hi there, welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk a little bit about small boat ownership, and the reason for doing that is that I've noticed that a lot of people have been looking at the first video that I did, which was about the Orkney Coastliner and was it an ideal fishing boat. And there's been quite a lot of people watching that, and I thought maybe there's a part two really, and that's, do you know, how much do these things cost? How much do they cost? So that's the focus of today's video. So if you are interested in a boat, and come on, you know, we've all had that dream, haven't we, that we want to buy a fishing boat and we want to be catching big fish, we want to go where we want, when we want, etc, etc. What is that dream? Is that dream a reality? So that's what I'm going to talk about today, so stay around and bear with me. One of the things that I need to say to begin with is that these are just my thoughts. And you know, what fits me may not fit you. So I just thought, let's get a few ideas going. And if at the end of this video, it's made you think, then it served its purpose. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about the boats, the choices, what it's going to cost, what it's really like. You've got to buy the thing in the first place. We're going to be having a look at that. And I think the first thing you've got to do is work out what you're comfortable with, because you may have a bigger pocket than me, a much deeper pocket, or it might be shallower, I don't know. So we're going to look at, you know, thinking about the cost of the boat, what you're comfortable with spending if you're going to get a boat. A few words of caution before we start. I often hear people say, Phil, I'm going to get a doer-upper, you know, a boat that I can buy cheap and do up. And I think, I wonder about that. Okay, yeah, it might work for you if you've got good DIY skills and you kind of know what you're doing. You know, if you're new to boats, then you're going to find that a steep learning curve. I mean, you may be the sort of person that's happy to listen to advice, to learn, to ask questions, and build those skills and have the tools to actually get a good boat in the end. And a lot of people do that. You know, there's loads of videos about people buying wrecked sailing boats and sailing across the world with them. But something to consider is that all the time you spent doing the DIY on the boat and getting it together, it's not only costing you money, but it's costing you a lot of time. And it may take you a couple of years fitting it in amongst other things. All of that time is like, you know, that's not your dream. Your dream was to be going straight out on the boat. Another thing to think about is that where are you going to repair a boat? It's usually down at a boat yard. Not everyone's got space at home to be able to do it. And so you'd be amazed just how much time you spend travelling backwards and forth from the boat yard to get that tool or some piece of material that you want to finish a job off. And even worse if the boat yard, you know, you haven't got the boat under cover. So I think these are all things that, you know, you need to think about. You know, are you going to buy something that you do up, or are you going to buy something that's probably okay, it floats and it will work, but you want to improve it? Or do you want to just buy a brand new package and pay the premium for that? Yeah, you've got everything new, you know it all works, you've got a manufacturer's warranty, a dealer's warranty, but not everyone's got that kind of pocket. I think an Orkney Coastliner, you know, really, you have a look on the Orkney site. I'm not going to put a price in here because it'll date the video, but it's quite expensive to buy the actual package, and even then you've got to put your electronics and things on it. Another thing I've heard said is that a boat is like a hole in the water that you throw money at. Yeah, maybe. It depends. There's a lot of boats out there. If you're wanting to buy a cheap boat, a project boat, and do it up, my thoughts are, look, be careful of those boats that just say, oh, you know, great project boat, just a few jobs to finish it off, like, you know, and you think, oh yeah, aye, right, as they say up here. Somebody else says they haven't got the time to do it, but they've realised how big a job that's going to be. So be very careful. There's a load of basket cases out there that, you know, to be honest, really need scrapping rather than project boats that you put back together and are worth saving. Okay, so you want a boat. Have I put you off yet? No? Carry on watching then. So If you're going to get a boat, my advice would be think about your budget. Get a feel for what you're comfortable spending. Let me level with you about what I was prepared to spend. So I'll come to that in a minute. But I think work out your budget. Think how much do I want to spend? How much can I justify spending on a boat? And then I'd probably say, look, halve it. All right, divide it by 2. And the reason I say that is that I think if you say your budget is X and you spend half of it on the physical boat, I think you'll soon swallow up the other half in repairs, modifications, adaptations, putting a new bit of kit on it, making it just exactly as you want. So my budget, what was it? Well, I was comfortable spending around about £5,000. A lot of people may actually sort of look at my boat and say, how much? Or they might just sort of say, well, you know, I've got a much bigger budget than that. It's like I said at the beginning, there isn't one size fits all here. You need to just kind of work this all out for yourself. But my budget was going to be around about £5,000. I spent a lot of time looking. I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted a kind of little workboat, like an Orkney, like a Shetland, something that had got a bit of a cuddy on it that I could shelter out of the wind and rain. I also wanted a boat that I could trail around the country and I could keep at home. I didn't want to justify mooring fees. The idea that a boat is sat bobbing around on a pontoon or a mooring, it's a worry. It's costing you money if you don't use it. It's costing you money anyway, but if you don't use it, you know, you sat there thinking, oh, you know, it's costing me a lot of money. If you got it at home in the garage or in the garden somewhere, if you're lucky enough to have that kind of space, that boat's costing you nothing if you don't use it. Now, for me, I probably get out maybe half a dozen times a year. It doesn't sound a lot. I live 30 odd miles from the coast. I live in the northeast of Scotland. We don't have many slipways. It's not like living on the south coast and you just hook up and go and there's free slipways and things. Very different up here. So the little boat just gets towed to different venues and I'll use it for several days at a time. But generally, half a dozen times realistically is the number of times it goes out each year. I also needed a boat that was small enough to tow behind a 2-wheel drive car. I sold an old 4-wheel drive. I just couldn't afford to run the thing anymore on a daily basis when I retired. So I just wanted to hook it up on a standard car, be able to tow it and not have a bother. And the beauty of the boat that I've ended up with is that it's no wider than the car. It's easy to tow. I wanted something that was going to be a capable little boat, and I think that's what I've got. It can deal with the Scottish locks, even the inland locks. If you look at some of my videos, Loch Oar, it can get quite choppy. Down in Falmouth, it copes all right with the inshore stuff. Just don't push your luck. Don't try going too far offshore. It's probably all right, but I think the boat's probably got more bottle than I have, so I stay inshore and fish local wrecks, that sort of thing, when I'm down there. It actually took me quite a lot of time to save up the £5,000. And that gave me a lot of time to look and consider and think, is this the right boat for me? Am I looking at the right kind of thing? And you know, you look at other things and think, oh God, it'd be really nice to have that kind of boat. But then reality kicks in. You think, yeah, but no, I can't get it in the garage, can't keep it at home, need a bigger car, etc. With your money saved up, you can start looking on these websites. So things like Boats and Outboards for Sale, Find a Fishing Boat, Apollo Duck, you name it, places where you can actually see boats advertised, local dealers, and although I don't have many of those around here, I didn't look at social media. I'm of an age, I don't really do that. I didn't look at any of the big online eBay type selling places either. Now in late 2019 I spotted the little Orkney Coastliner and it was at a dealer's in Morpeth down in England, and that's a good 4-hour journey away from me. So I made myself a big list of questions and I got on the phone and started talking to the broker. Asked a lot of questions about the boat and they were really good, really genuine at filling in the detail. I asked for photographs, more photographs, detailed photographs and things. I really got a sense of what I was actually buying. even though I hadn't actually physically been to look at it. Bearing in mind, it's 4 hours or it's an 8-hour trip just to go and look at it. So I needed to be confident, I think, that it was going to be the right boat for me. I'll make an offer and I'm prepared to put down a deposit, a small deposit. And that's what I did. I made him an offer. I bought the boat for £2,225. It was sat there with its 15 horsepower. It was a bare boat, no electronics to rip out or anything like that. So I got a 15 horsepower 2-stroke. The boat, the trailer, came with an anchor or two, some oars, one or two other little bits and bobs, but nothing more than that. Just a very, very basic little boat. So I put down £225 as a deposit. Okay, now you might be thinking, Phil, you're nuts, that's a big risk if you haven't actually seen the boat. So in my mind it was like, well, I'll go down, I'll drive down, and if it turns out to be a complete bunch of lies as to what this boat actually was, and it's a real basket case, I'm prepared to just walk away. I'll try and get me 225 quid back, but I'll walk away. I'm not committed to it. I asked lots of questions. This was like in the sort of December of 2019. It wasn't until sort of January, February time that the weather permitted me to actually go down and pick up the boat, pay the balance and tow it home. I asked them about things like the tyres. Are they good? And the answer was yeah, they're all right. And the boat just towed it down from Scotland to here, so they must be okay. I thought, yeah, fine, I'll come back to that in a minute. I went down, I looked at the boat, and sure enough, it was a little bit rougher than maybe the photographs make out, but you never really get that detail. But there were things that you could polish out: scratches, knocks, bumps. It's a 30-year-old boat. It's bound to have had a bit of a knock here and a knock there. Basically, it was exactly what I wanted. It was a bare boat, the condition was all right, and I thought, right, okay. So I paid him the balance, we hooked it up onto the car, and there it was, driving home with my new pride and joy, my new toy, yeah? What could possibly go wrong? Well, I'm driving over the Forth Road Bridge and I'm looking in the rear view mirror and I can see that the cover's starting to flap. It's making a hasty exit. It's trying to get over the railings onto the River Forth, and I'm thinking, oh God. So I stopped at the first safe place. I pulled off the motorway and stopped at the first place, strapped all the cover back on again, and off I go. Heart rate's getting down again. I'm all right. So I'm driving on and get a little bit further north towards Perth, and I look in the rear view mirror and there's the boat on a bit of an angle like this. Oh, here we go. Near side tyre on the trailer had burst. Fortunately, I had a spare, but I can tell you it's a bit scary changing a boat wheel at the side of a motorway. We've not got the busiest of motorways up in Scotland, but it was a bit of an adventure, let's just say that. At the end of the day, I got the boat home and I was really pleased with it. But that's where the spending started. So when I got back home, I thought, well, I'm going to need new tyres. I had a look online, and I found some 6-ply tyres, the right size. They come on their own wheels, so I thought, well, yeah, I'll get those. They were 44 quid each. There's a bit of a bill to start off with, and then when you take the wheel off, you look at the hub and the bearings, and you think, oh, they're a bit rough. So I buy a couple of hubs and a couple of bearings, so that's about another 120 quid. So right, okay, and do you know what? The suspension looks a bit. It looks a bit past it. I'll buy some new suspension units. Okay, you get any idea where all of this is going? With my budget's 5, I've paid 2,225 for the boat, and now I'm spending. And I haven't even got things like the life jacket, the VHF radio, the sounder, all of those things. They're all extras that you're going to put on there. I mentioned before, the scratches on the gel coat. Marine polishers don't come cheap. Gel coat doesn't come cheap to do these repairs, particularly if you've got to get things matched, so you get the nearest possible colour match. I wanted to fit some seats to the boat. Look back at the video of how I set the boat up and you'll see that I have done quite a lot to it. All in all, I spent quite a lot of money on the boat and the repairs and the trailer, but I've got exactly what I want, and it has come in under budget. I've spent around about £4,500 repairing the boat, getting it all sorted out. But, and here's the but, you'll know from a couple of the other videos that I bought a new engine. Why did I buy the new engine? Well, on the very first trip out with it to Loch Oar, everything performed great. It was lovely. I went out for the day, engine performed great, pull start, no problem, seemed to go okay. Tow it all the way down to Cornwall for my week's holiday. And first day, no problem. Second day, it's getting quite rough and on the tick over, the idle. So I'm thinking, well, it's all right with a few revs, you know, but the idle is a little bit rough. So I had a look and plugs seemed okay and everything. So we did the day's fishing, you know, motored out somewhere, anchored up, came back again. It was still coughing and spitting when I got back, when I was on low revs, just ticking over, trying to get into the pontoon. The next day, the engine was not running well at all. So I give it a good spray with the damp start, the WD and everything like that, and it improved matters. But it did put a little bit of a damper on that first trip, and when it came home, I had a look, and what would actually happen is, bearing in mind this is a 30-year-old outboard, or was it a 1990s outboard? But an old one anyway. One of the ignition coils had got a hairline crack underneath. When you left the boat out on a mooring on next to the pontoon, it got damp overnight, and that's what was causing the short. So I replaced that coil. Well, I replaced them both just to be on the safe side. So that was a little bit more money. But I also found that, you know, an old two-stroke, they're the sort of things that, you know, some days you'll give it a pull and it fires up first go. Next time you pull and pull and pull and you keep pulling a lot of times. And I just got hacked off with that. So that was when the choice was made. Right, I'm going to re-engine it. I like the boat. I am going to keep it. I'm going to trade in the old engine to a dealer, and in this case it was Clyde Outboard, and I told them what I'd done and what the engine was about. They were going to give it a service, and they, as part of the deal, they were going to fit the new outboard, and in this case it was the Tohatsu 20, and I went up a little bit in horsepower as well. It's at that point where I've overspent on the boat. If you think about my little boat as it was, repaired, polished, cleaned up, under £5,000 on a well restored trailer, everything was looking good. I could have sold that for what money I'd put into it. Now when you add on to that another 3,300 odd for a brand new outboard, yes, it raises the value of the boat, but it brings the overall package, my spend, up to pushing £7,000. And you're going to be sitting out there saying, Phil, I wouldn't have sunk 7,000 quid into a 14-foot Orkney Coastliner, little boat like that. As I said at the beginning, what's right for me isn't necessarily right for you. I've still got the boat that I wanted. I've still got the boat that is absolutely as I want. I can tuck it up in the garage. I can work on it in the winter. It's not costing me any money when it's in there and I'm not using it. I go out, I'm a bit of a Billy No Mates. I'm usually on my own. It's a bit cramped with two people in it, but it's quite doable. Okay, you wouldn't get two mates and yourself in there, three of you fishing. It may well be able to carry 3 or 4 people by load. But when you get the fishing gear in and you need the moving about space for fishing, two's your max. Two's your max for the little 14-footer like that. So other things I've bought, and a part of that budget really, are the 2.5 horsepower Suzuki. That's also a 4-stroke, and that's my little auxiliary engine. I've got what I want. I like it. I just thought I'd feed into the melting pot here a little bit about some of the costs, a little bit of reality. So if you've got a dream, if you're looking to buy yourself a little boat and you think it's right, I hope this video has just sort of thrown something into the melting pot. You might sort of say, it's no good, I want a much bigger boat. Go for it, you know, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying my boat. It's right for me and I'm having a great time with it. I don't honestly see myself changing in the near future. I think this boat is the boat for me. So I hope you found this useful. If you're going to get a boat, put something in the comments here, ask questions. If there's anything else you want to know, if there's something else you think I haven't covered, yeah, just ask it in the comments, and I'll put some information in for you if I can answer your question and if I can help. Yeah, okay. So as usual, tight lines from me, tail wag from Dee. She's downstairs snoozing away, and I'm up here in the office. So enjoy your fishing, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.